Talk to me here about this bullet point. I want to get to the new stuff that just came out from the August 23rd poll. This goes back a little bit, but the 62% of voters who say they want less regulation if that means more businesses can be created. This is not a surprise for free market guys, for less government guys like us. But what does this tell you? Because I don't imagine that average folks are just walking around and government regulation is top of mind. It is very real for them. What does this bullet point tell you?
Right. It is very real right now. And this bullet point really couples with another one that I'll mention in a second. But I mean, it really means that folks understand that government regulation and bureaucrats are getting in the way of real job creation, right? I mean, we hear from the governor and from the Biden-Harris administration that the economy seems to be great, things are going well, but people on the ground know that it's anything but. People are having two jobs, wages are not keeping up with inflation, and they are really seeing that, you know, one of the biggest obstacles, if not the biggest obstacle to entrepreneurs and job creators being able to help our economy and our families move forward is the bureaucracy. And, you know, bureaucrats that are sitting in Madison and in Washington that have never built a business themselves, have never worked in a business probably, right? They've worked for the government most of their lives, and they know best. And so they are putting up barriers and doing what they can to, you know, maybe they think they're doing the right thing, but they are stopping people from succeeding. So really that question, it got to a policy reform that we're looking at that a couple other states have worked on, where, you know, you set up, it's called a sandbox. You set up a sandbox where you kind of get rid of government regulations and allow entrepreneurs and folks that want to start a new business to do so without the heavy hand of government. Let's see how they can succeed for a couple of years. Not that they will not then be regulated, but then you figure out an appropriate regulatory scheme, and you don't try to regulate new business entrants using a model of regulation that was crafted, 40, 50, 60 years ago. So people get it. They see that bureaucracy is not a help when it comes to growing our economy.
Am I making too big of a stretch? And I fear I am. But is it too big of a stretch to say this is the story of Uber? This is the story of Lyft, that these rideshare companies, for all of the things that they're good at, there are negatives, but they didn't wait for government regulation to keep up. While the government rules were taxi cabs and the Byzantine laws that allowed there, these dudes figured out, these people figured out, hey, we can get you a ride from somebody in their own car and we'll do it on your phone. And they did it so quickly and so successfully that you didn't have time for the bureaucrats, for the lawmakers to get in the way. And by the time everyone accepted it, they were going to reject outright any regulation that was going to make it tougher for them to get a ride, whether it's Uber or Lyft or somebody else.
Right, absolutely. And government tried for sure, right? I mean, I remember those battles a decade ago in the state capitol and in state capitals around the country where government was trying to force the rideshare companies and other app based companies to fit in an antiquated regulatory process that did not work for them. Ultimately, thankfully, those industries prevailed, either by having friendly legislatures that created laws that allowed them to continue their business model, or in the court around the country. But that's absolutely it. It's entrepreneurs. New ideas do not fit what bureaucrats thought were best in years past.
Well, and that's the point of this. I mean, that's a great part about the market. When the market shows that, hey, man, there's a want for this. People will pay you to do this for them, because a lot of times that's the hole in the donut. The regulation has made the old market like this. The new market can be like that, but somebody's got to take the step forward. We're talking with Chris Reeder, Institute for Reforming Government. And you guys just came out with a poll here August 23rd. And I like the way that this first bullet point here is written. By a margin of 58-31, voters favor Kamala Harris's plan to give $25,000 to people for first-time home purchases. But when told that it could add more than $25 billion a year and increase inflation, opposition jumps to 53%, support drops to 40%. People love free stuff, Chris. until they find out that free ain't free, and inflation is such a top of mind issue that even a free 25 grand is enough for people to say, wait, that's going to add to inflation? No, thank you. Not for me.
Right, and especially when voters and independents especially are seeing that their wages are not keeping up with inflation. You know, we look at that question, we almost, as we're thinking about it, it shows on one hand that people are hurting so bad right now in this Harris-Biden economy that they're willing to entertain if there's a line of people for government handouts. You know, if it's out there, I'm going to get in line and I'm going to get mine, right? I mean, folks were almost conditioned to that during COVID. Or we're just going to put money in your checkbook, whether you are asking for it or not. So it's human nature. If there's money to be had, that you will raise your hand and say yes. But yeah, when they're informed of the consequences, it's going to mean higher inflation. You know, it's hard to fathom, but yeah, higher inflation. It's going to lead to billions, of government debt. People see through that and they say, you know what, let's slow this down. Let's not add to the problem. So, I mean, yeah, people get it. Inflation is definitely top of mind, especially with the all-important independent voters.
I want to ask you a big picture question about these polls because we're running out of time, but I got to ask. Mm-hmm. People have made inflation real. They understand the A to B to C of federal government spending to out of control inflation to now I'm paying far more for groceries and gas and the like. How do we get people to do that at the state level? How do we get people to say Tony Evers' policies have ruined public education? You know, public schools are not doing as well. Wisconsin could be a much better place if we lowered taxes, got rid of the income tax. We've had this success with national inflation. How do we replicate that success here at the state level?
Right. Well, and 53% of people are still in favor in this most recent poll of eliminating the income tax, so they get it. I mean, honestly, it's just continuing to talk about these issues, to talk about that government policy is handing out money and putting barriers in the way is what's driving so much of what's wrong in our lives these days. Another question showed that strong, almost majority of people chose government bureaucrats as one of the biggest threats to democracy right now, more so than elections that are not fair and hostile. Foreign governments, they chose government bureaucracy as being the biggest threat to democracy. So we need to continue talking about these failures at the state level, at local levels, and certainly at the federal level, and show how the policies of bigger spending, more bureaucracy is not going to turn things around. We need to look at eliminating the income tax. We need to look at regulatory sandboxes, and that starts at the state level, right? I mean, when we think of what we are at IRG, I mean, we're a state-based think tank. We're part of a group of think tanks around the country that really believe in federalism, that ideas bubble up from the states first. And so that's what we work on every day, is to make sure that those positive ideas are being talked about with voters and with residents, and importantly with lawmakers. And, we just need voters to put folks in office that will help implement the right reforms.
If you're looking to write the story from this interview, the headline is polls show voters agree that government regulation is a threat to both jobs and democracy. That's the takeaway from this. Just in case, I interviewed John Jagler the other day, and then every single Milwaukee TV station did a story on it. So if you're going to steal from this interview, which, by the way, please do. I'm totally going to do it over at the Center Square. This story will be written up there in a couple of hours. But the headline is, voters see government bureaucrats as a threat to jobs and democracy. Chris, I don't have enough time to get to the other question. I want to thank you so very much. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for joining us here on this Thursday morning. Where can people find you on Twitter, on Facebook, online, if they want to read these polls or just get more of the ideas?
Yep, go to reforminggovernment.org. Everything should be listed out there on our website.
Chris Reeder, Institute for Reforming Government, thanks so very much. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for joining us here.